Hi, I'm Mary Poplin with Boris Effects. We're going to be showing you a webinar event today that's finishing techniques with BCC and Premiere Pro. Ben Brownlee is going to be our presenter. He's the master trainer at Curious Turtle.
Hello.
There you are.
I'm here. Sorry, I forgot to unmute my mic.
It's totally fine. The topics we're going to cover today is we're going to pump up your effects by animating them to music with Beat Reactor. We're going to make your talent look their best with image restoration tools like Beauty Studio and Magic Sharp. We're going to easily track effects with the integrated Mocha PixelChooser. And we're going to create broadcast-ready multi-layered titles. So Ben Brownlee is a visual effects artist and trainer with a range of skills in both production and post-production, and he's focused mainly on visual effects. He's worked on commercial, broadcast, and film projects across the globe since 1999, and he offers tons of training over at Curious Turtle. He's also done all our intro videos for us, so if you've seen the fundamentals of Mocha and the fundamentals of Boris Effects, Ben's going to sound very familiar to you. Now, all of your questions will be answered live. Simply type in your question, hit send, and we will do the rest. Stay tuned for prizes. So you have to stay till the end of the webinar to win prizes, but you could win big today. You could win a BCC multi-host 1-year subscription. You could win a Mocha Pro 5 1-year subscription. Also, you could win a Sapphire 10 1-year subscription, and one lucky attendee will win an RX plugin pack from Isotope from our friends over there. Now, a special discount is actually available now. And it's okay. Hi, Peter. We've just started. Peter's going to be co-hosting with us today. So we're going to do a special discount. Use BCC 10. You're going to use Web December 16. It expires December 30th. And we wish you a wonderful holiday season and a happy new year. Your co-hosts today are Peter McCauley. He's our senior product manager at Boris Effects. And I am Mary Poplin, product specialist with Imagineer Systems and Boris Effects. You can join our community online on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Vimeo. I'm going to pass the presentation over to Ben, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay. Right, just let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see your screen, so you are good to go.
Fantastic.
Take it away.
Thank you very much. Great. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. As Mary said, we are going to be looking at a number of, what I like to call finishing techniques with the BCC plugins within Premiere Pro today. So for those of you who don't know, the Boris Continuum Complete is a full set of, I don't know how many plugins we've got, over 100 and something or other plugins now spread out over 18 different categories. It's got loads of your sort of bread and butter plugins like your blurs and your sharpens. But I want to show you how even those sort of fairly standard plugins have got a little bit of a Boris twist to them, and how you can start to use them in some slightly different ways. But I thought we'd actually start in the image restoration category, because this contains a couple of my sort of go-to plugins, ones that I'll use pretty consistently on most projects. And I think we'll start with the Beauty Studio filter here. So what I've got, I'll show you what we're starting with. I work a lot with some sort of fashion type of projects. So one of the things that's very important to me is actually getting skin looking as best as it can. And for any number of reasons, sometimes skin can be a little bit troublesome, and you can have a few bits of problems with that. So what the Beauty Studio plugin is going to let us do is it's going to help us to sort of smooth out some of these bumps and imperfections in the skin, which is perfectly natural, but doesn't help to sell makeup and clothes and things like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my Beauty Studio plugin and I'll place it over here. And let's come to the first frame and take a look at our effects controls. So one of the things that we have built in to all of the BCC filters is this little thing called compare. And what the compare lets us do is it lets us, well, obviously compare the before and after of the filter, because we can easily do that by toggling the effect on and off, just as I'm doing here, and you can start to see before and after, just with the default settings. But what the compare lets us do is it lets us either have sort of a side-by-side comparison, and we can move that over a little bit. Let's move that to 80 to move it to one side, or take it a bit more to the other side so we can see, there we go, do a sort of like-for-like comparison so we can easily see the before and the after of what we're doing. And I think that's quite important with an effect like Beauty Studio, because the temptation is always to sort of push it a little bit further and then bring it back again. So it helps you from straying too far over and sort of getting a little bit too of an unrealistic effect. So it just lets you see where you're going and what you're doing. So as well as looking at it side by side, we can also compare it on the layer itself, and this will do a line, actually a wipe. We move that up a little bit. You can start to see, or maybe not start to see, there we go. Look at the guy's face. You start to see that wiping a little bit of the before and after there. But I think it's easier to see, especially with a webinar, it's easier to see this when it's side by side. So we'll just bring that there for now. So what the Beauty Studio is essentially doing is it's helping to smooth out some of the imperfections in the skin whilst maintaining, and this is the important thing, because it's not just like a blur that goes over the entire skin and messes everything up. It also helps to maintain these sort of, let's zoom this into 100% here, so we see this a little bit more. So we maintain some of the grain structure and also some of the bits of the skin that help it to seem natural. So it's not just this weird, unnatural, uncanny valley, plastic looking skin. So let's just zoom this back out again. And we can affect that by using the smoothing here. So I have my little master amount, and I can just take that down to 0. So then we've got it back at 0, so it's not actually doing anything. Or we can start to crank it up past 100, and if we crank it up really, really high, it's going to start to look unnaturally smooth, which is not really what we're after. So what I like to do when I'm doing these this sort of work here is actually push it a little bit too far. So maybe take the master amount to 120 here, and then just start to bring it back. So, but with the master amount set to 120, I can start to figure out where I need to have some of the other details here. So we can maintain some of the smallest details, the small details, the medium details, and the large details. So we've got full control over how smooth or rough our skin is looking. So it's in this way, if I can just, again, maybe I'll just turn the comparison off for a second so we can zoom in a little bit more. So we can see this here. If I take my smooth, smallest details up to 100, you can see up at the forehead here. Let's undo that and take a look. There's a little bit of imperfections in the skin up there. So if I take that all the way up to 100, we're smoothing out all of that stuff, but actually at the expense of some of the grains. So it could end up being a little bit too smooth. So the job here is then just to bring it down a little bit, so we're still getting the effect that we want, the smoothness that we want, without affecting the actual overall structure and making this thing look really super weird. And we can do the same across the things here with the small details, the large details. If I bring the large details down to 0, you can start to see what that's doing. In fact, we can even go negative and sort of increase or enhance some of those things. So if you take a look at the shadow going along down here, at -100, and then compare that to 100, -100, and 100. So one of the fun things here, actually with this smooth large details, is to isolate it. Instead of isolating it to skin, you can isolate it out to something like clothes and actually build in a whole load of really interesting contrast into clothes there. But this takes me to my next topic, which is actually, you have a little look here. I do a before and after. You can see it's not affecting the entire image. It's actually mainly affecting the skin tones. And the reason that it's doing that is because of another feature that's built into pretty much every BCC filter, which is the PixelChooser down here at the bottom. So if I open this up, what the PixelChooser does is it allows us to focus our effect just on either one area of the image, say with something like a mask. And we've got lots of different types of masks, and we'll be looking at these in more detail in just a moment. Or by looking at isolating these out with a matte. If I open this up here, we can pull a Luma key, or we can use the red, green, or blue color channels, or the alpha channel to isolate where the effect is going on to. Or we can use a key here and pull a color key. So if I come up and just have a little look, open my matte layer is video 1, which is fine here. And what I've got, if I bring this up a little bit here and go to view, mask and matte, you can see where my key is being pulled. So by default, the Beauty Studio is going to pull some sort of generic style of skin tones. So if those are working for you, great. If they're not, well, we'll just use the eyedropper and just find some ones that are. So I'm just going to come in, I'm going to do 2 samples. There we go. And if we turn on our matte and mask one more time, you can see that's picked out a bit more of those details for me. And obviously I have full control over this key, so I can isolate this really to where I need it to be. So probably bring the softness up here a little bit, just a wee bit. Blur that out a little bit as well. There we go. Cool. Okay, so now if we turn off our matte and mask, you'll see that that effect, if I just again do the before and after on that, you'll see that effect is now doing the skin tones, but because of where our key is, it's also taking some of the hair, making that hair there look unnaturally smooth and turning it, yeah, losing all the texture in it. So that's not what we want. Luckily, not only do we don't have to make the choice of choosing either to do the matte or the mask, we can do a matte and a mask combined. And again, built into, well, wherever you see the PixelChooser, you've got a version of Mocha. Let's hit continue on this. There we go. You've got a version of Mocha built into the plugin. And this is absolutely fantastic. So what we can do with Mocha here is we can use this to generate up very easily some nice roto splines that we can track in nice and quickly. Let's just smooth that out a little bit there, just with the right clicking. Let's bring that around about here. I'm not going to be too perfect on this. There we go. So I've drawn up my little shape. I can use Mocha's planar tracker to then track that through. And we can control all of the stuff just as we would do with the full version of Mocha or Mocha AE or whatever version of Mocha you might happen to be familiar with. It works in exactly the same way. So I can just track that forwards now. And it's using the planar tracker to keep that shape locked in. So instead of just doing like a normal point tracker, which is taking one or multiple points to help to build up the shape, what it's doing is instead it's tracking through that texture, which means that even when we have the rack focus go through here, it's not losing that track. So the planar tracker is a lot more resilient to things like motion blur, to things like grain, and changes in lighting than point trackers or even cloud point trackers are. And once we've got that here, all we have to do is we just save it out or just exit and save. And now that's automatically applied that in addition to our key, to our mat that we did. And we can come into our mask one more time, and we can see that it's taken on the shape of the mocha spline there. And I can just feather that out a little bit more if I want to. And now, if we do the before and after on that, you can see it's only doing that on her face, which is great. It's a little bit too much for my taste. It's perfect for the webinar because I know that sometimes that some of the finer details gets lost in the compression. But if I wanted to now, it's at this point that I would come down and take my master amount down and just mix that back a little bit so that it's not quite as smooth. There we go. Cool. Before and after. Before and after. Cool. Now there's one thing before we move on, and also if you've got questions, keep typing them in, and if Mary can't answer them straight away, or if you've got something that that needs to be demonstrated, then we will be taking sort of short breaks, short pauses throughout the webinar, so we can maybe go a bit more in depth into some of these things.
Wonderful, thank you.
No, thank you. So before we move on from this clip, I just want to show you one little thing. Let's go up here. Sometimes we have persistent little blemishes that can't be dealt with just with the Beauty Studio, or if we cranked up the Beauty Studio to get rid of a specific blemish, then that would also, you know, affect and ruin the rest of the shot. So something like this here, we can use another one of the effects, and I could also just actually we can just find it here. It's the BCC remover. It's under image restoration, and we've got a remover here. And the remover is often used for things such as removing objects that are in the way. It's a sort of a little bit of a clone tool. So if we take a look, let's just zoom this back out 1 second. So if we take a little look, we've got a source spot and a destination spot. So if I bring my destination over the top of the little spot over here, and I bring my source over here somewhere, bring that around about there, and we just do the before and after. So you can see it's just cloning the area over the edge of that there, and we can change how we do this. We can feather this up a little bit more if we need to. There we go. We can change the opacity so we don't have to do 100% clone. We can sort of mix it back and make it a little bit more natural. We can take the radius down as well. So we take a little look before and after on that. That's dealt with that quite nicely. Now the only thing we've got here, if I play this back, is obviously we haven't keyframed this. So what's going to happen is that clone spot and the destination spot is just going to stay where it was. So we can do this in a couple of different ways. We could either go in and do keyframing, or doing a bit of match moving, and to try and sort of manually get it into the right place. Or let's do things in a slightly easier way. See my little mocha button again? Boom. Let's come back into mocha. And we'll do the same thing, well, the same basic thing as last time. So this time I'm just going to do create a little spline, little shape around the spot we want to remove. There we go. And as in the type of the motion that we want, I'm just going to do translation because we only want to track the source in this position of the source there. And we'll just track that forwards nice and quickly. And it's actually, it's in these sort of instances where the planar tracker really sort of helps out, because this is going to go out of focus. And with a lot of the point trackers, once something blurs up to a certain degree, that's it, you're done. But because we're getting tracking a bigger texture here, it's able to lock on a lot easier. So that's done in there. And as soon as I come out now, what I can do is I can change my removal method from clone spot down to clone shape. So what this is now going to do is it's now going to take my, let's have a look, that's going to take my little mask that I've got there, and it's going to then ask me to do an offset of where I want to take the destination from. So I can just move that down a little bit and a little bit over to the side. There we go. Lovely. Scrub that through, maybe take that to 1910 or something. There we go. And I've still got full control over things like feather. If I come into my mask here, I can still feather that out and get that nice and smooth. And the good thing about that now is that obviously that shape has been tracked in Mocha, so that I can easily, well, I don't have to do anything else. That's just easily tracked through that spot straight away. Cool. And before we move on, one final effect on this shot, and this really is something that I add to, I'd say 99% of all of the work that that we do, and it's fantastic. It's my little magic bullet. It is magic sharp, and what this is going to do, it's just going to help after we've done all that smoothing and sort of fine-tuned all those little details or all the little pits in the skin. What we're going to do now is then just do a magic sharp over the top. And what this is going to do is it's just going to help everything just to pop a little bit more. With the BCC plugins, we have a whole load. In fact, it's thousands of presets within the plugins themselves. And if I click on just the drop-down menu here, we can see the ones that are associated with the Magic Sharp. So we can have things like Big Boost, which is a little bit too big, Double Sharpness, Super Sharp. Hopefully that's coming over how sharp that really is over on your side. But the one that I always use constantly is High Thresh Sharp Edges. So High Threshold Sharp Edges. And what this just does is it just adds that last little ping to the footage. So it just sharpens out just a tiny amount. And the default value of 30 is fine. Oftentimes, turn it up, you can really see, oh, that's sharp. I usually turn it down a little bit. To be fair, I'll usually take that down to about 15, and that's just enough just to help things pop out without sort of being over sharpened. But obviously that depends on your footage and what you're doing. So what the source material is and where your destination is. But I always find just a little bit of Magic Sharp just helps to make that sort of last little bit sing. Cool. So we've looked at quite a few in the image restoration category here. We've looked at the Beauty Studio. So we'll take it from 0 here. So we looked at Beauty Studio to do the overall sort of skin smoothing. We've done the remover to take out the little blemish there. And then we've given it a little extra pop just with Magic Sharp. And if we play that back, in the one that I've mixed earlier, there we go. You can sort of see that all coming together. Cool. Now we're going to move on to another shot, but before I do that, are there any questions about that haven't been answered, Mary?
I think we've covered everything, unless somebody has anything last minute they want to touch on before we move on.
Well, we'll leave those then. I'll move on, and if there's anything else, then we'll see if we've got time to come back to it at the end.
Okay, perfect. Cool. But yeah, we've answered everybody so far.
Good stuff. Cool. Our next shot here is just it's a little bit of an aeroplane coming in. land. And all I'm going to do with this is just see how we can start to change the colors and make some of the sky pop out a little bit using just, a couple of very, very simple little techniques. And one of the things that I like to do all the time is try to maybe not automate stuff, but create presets for a lot of things so that I don't have to redo work time and time again. And that's one of the ways that the BCC stuff helps me out quite a lot. So we're going to come into the color and tone category now. And I'm just going to come in with maybe just a basic color correction. And what I'm going to try to do here is just to add a little bit more saturation to the sky, because the sky is looking a little bit sort of bland and a little bit kind of dead, really. So the BCC color correction, it does what it says on the tin. It's a color correcting filter. So we have things like brightness and contrast, lovely, but I'm not interested in all of that stuff, hue. What I am interested in is saturation. And all I'm going to do is just crank that saturation up. And so now I've got a really nice blue sky and a really oversaturated everything else, really. So what I want to do is I want to keep that saturation in the sky, but limit that only to the sky itself. And we've sort of seen some of the ways that we can do that using the PixelChooser. But I want to show another couple of things that we've got, another couple of options we've got with the PixelChooser here. So we come down to PixelChooser. I'm going to come down to matte first. No, I'm not. I'm going to come down to mask first. Go in order. And I can choose my different types of shapes. So we've got things like the mocha spline. So if we've created something in mocha, that's where we're using that there. We've got eggs, we've got ovals, circles, rectangles. The one I'm interested in here is the gradient. So we've got a linear gradient or linear with a double edge. So it means we go down. Let's just show you here. So it means we fade up to a point and then we fade back down again. But the one I'm interested really is just a simple, straightforward linear gradient. And let's just turn the mask on there so you can see what we're doing here. So all I really want to do with this is just rotate this around minus 90 degrees and then define where the sky is going to start. There we go. We're working, for some reason I've decided that we should be working in on 4K footage. Don't ask me why, but I thought that would obviously speed things through for the webinar. So we're working with some quite high numbers here. And we can change things like the gradient distance as well. So we can have either like a sharp, just a sharp cutoff, or we can sort of blend that in a little bit better. We'll blend that in there. So now we can see, if I do my compare, one more time, there we go, let's compare side by side. We can see that we've got the sky coming in nice and saturated, but still we're not affecting the plane anymore, but we're still affecting this area here. So I want to just simply isolate that sky out. And just as we did before, we're not going to just use the mask, we're going to use a combination of mask and matte. So again, come into the key, and I'm going to pick a couple of colors, a couple of blues. There we go. So just sampling randomly on the sky so we can build up a little bit of a sky here. And I can change my hue softness, which sort of lets me take in a few more shades of blue. Can bring up the saturation, bring up the luma, or bring down the luma as I need to. What I can also do is take out some of the other details and make a sort of higher contrast matte, is just to clip the black and the white here. And again, just add a tiny bit of blur on top, just 2 or 3 pixels. Boom. Lovely. And now if I turn off my view map mask, there we go. And we do the compare now. We can see I've now isolated out the sky without touching the rest of the location or the plane. Cool. Now, remember I said I like presets? And the BCC, the Boris Continuum, has loads of presets all built in. Well, not only can we save presets for the filters and the filter properties themselves, we can also save presets for the PixelChooser as well. So if I'm doing a lot of skies, then what I can do is I can just save this one out, and I will just call this one Ben Sky. And if I come to another clip over here, which has got some sky stuff in there, and let's do a color correction over the top of that. And we'll do, what should we do on this one? Well, let's just change the hue on that. There we go. So the sky's looking nice. Ground, not so much. Cool. So what we're going to do, yeah, PixelChooser, turn that on, open this up, and I can now load that preset, Ben Sky, and that will come in. Let's have a look at that. So you see that's using the combination of the gradient there and using the key to just key that sky in. So that's kind of cool. And it's just that, you know, that process of when you do something once and you like it, you've done that hard work, all you do, you just save that preset out. And because it goes out as a separate file, if you're working with a number of people, you can have a sort of shared pool of these sort of useful presets to draw on. And you don't actually have to be working in Premiere to be sharing presets as well. If you're working in After Effects, or if someone else is working in After Effects, they can also use the BCC, the Adobe BCC plugins, save their presets out, and you can use them in Premiere or After Effects. Cool. All right, so now we've got our sky fixed up on here. We'll just quickly look at one more of the colors, or the color and tone filters, I should say. Or actually, no, let's not. Let's look at something else. We're going rogue here. We're going off script. We'll look at film style instead. And we can look at, let's look at fast film process. Here we go. So what the fast film process is, it's a number of different ways of getting, some cool, interesting little looks. And one of the things about having tons and tons of presets is that even if they're named quite interesting names, until you've used them, you don't know what they're going to look like. Or do you? That's another little thing. If we got under the effects and presets here, we also have an effects browser. If I click on that, what this is going to do is it's going to bring up the Boris effects browser, so we can come in here and we can look at how, actually we can also bring that resolution up a little bit. We can look at how those presets are going to fit over the top of our image. We'll see something here. So find something that we like. That heavy misting was quite nice. And we can even play that back in situ as well. Again, we're running at 4K. We don't really need that. Let's take that down to quarter res. There we go. So we can start to play that back a little bit nicer. Very good. So I hit apply on that. And I can even mix that back. If I think that filters or that preset's a little bit too strong, we can always mix that back with the mix original. There we go. So look at how that would look if I didn't have the sky boost on there. But that's not looking great. So that's just the importance, I think, of just maybe popping the sky a little bit before we do any overall effects. Nice. How are we doing on questions over there? Anything good? Or tricky, I should say?
We're not really doing too tricky. Somebody wanted to know what the specs of your computer are.
That is a very good question, and I can't remember. It was pretty decent well, decently spec'd out when I bought it. We've got 32 gig of RAM, and I think it's the GTX 980 graphics card, and I can't remember what the processor is, but it's an i7 something or other.
Perfect. Is it a PC or a laptop?
It is a desktop PC.
Perfect.
Yeah, good.
And that's really it.
And that's it. Good. All right, lovely. We'll move on to the next shot then.
You're just explaining everything very well, and you're going very slow, and people are clearly getting it.
Oh, you. That's very nice. Thank you very much. We're going to look now. I know we're starting to run short on time, but we'll be all right. Be all right, everyone. We're going to look at the next shot now, which is where we're going to be looking at how we can start to use things like lens flare and start to add a little bit of eye candy into our shots. So if I come somewhere in the middle here, let's say, and let's come over to our effects one more time. We've got one of my favorite little eye candy categories is the BCC lights. So here we have things like edge lighting, glints, and glare. I mean, edge lighting is great for things like text. A lot of these are great for text. You get your light sweeps. If you ever need a bit of lightning, there you go. Perfectly contextual in this case. Lovely bit of lightning there. Maybe let's take the lightning away and come and look at lens flare instead. Cool, so we've got our lens flare 3D. So let's bring this in. Cool, so let's have a little look under the effect here. Now, lens flare is one of those plugins where there are a lot of parameters to choose from. This is a very, very deep plugin. If you want to, you really start to get really nerdy in there and start to design some really cool little lens flares. For the rest of us, let's have a look at the effects browser one more time. We've also got access to a lot of different presets already here. So we can have a look and find something that we like within the presets, and then start to build on top of that. And that's one of the things that's the presets are actually very nicely designed, because what they do is they show a sort of wide variety of the different types of things that you can do with a particular plugin. So you might not want something big, huge, and exploding, but the fact that we've got something big, huge, and exploding means that we can start with this as a starting off point, and then start to tailor it a bit more to our needs. So I'm using the soft flare colored fog, and if we just pull the flare down here, we can choose what sort of color we've got as an overall flare. I don't think we'd have a nice sort of pink purple flare within here, so I'm going to go for something a little bit more natural, a little bit warmer. And let's just take actually one of the yellows from there, and our ring color. Let's grab maybe a little green. There we go. Cool. All right, so we've got. If I click on my effect here, I've got heads-up display here, and the HUD here lets us come in and change our flare and change our parameters directly on the viewer itself. And this is really useful if you don't want to sort of start to play around and to muck around too much with the sliders. Then we can just sort of drag and drop, or drag and play with the interface itself. So that's kind of nice. And once we've got the flare in position, I can start to come in now and just tweak it. So I can tweak the intensity, I can tweak the scale, that flare, there we go. And I can start to work down as we go here. Actually, I can do overall global scale and global intensity as well. I should say that before we do anything else. So we don't have to do one or the other. There we go. So we don't have to individually go into every single control. There we go, and sort of do all of that stuff. But we can go sort of step by step, take the fog down a little bit if we don't need as much fog. Some of these little things here, maybe I'm not a huge fan of the elliptical caustic. Well, actually, I'm a huge fan of that. I'm going to make that even bigger. There we go. Size that up. Now we can even offset that a little bit more, so it's a bit more off the screen. There we go. So we can really start to play around and customize the effect as we need to. Things like chromatic aberration as well. It's just a little twist just to sort of sell this as a more realistic flare rather than just a CG flare. All right, cool. So we've got our flare coming in. All right, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. This is where we want to be either keyframing it or moving it or doing something with it, because at the moment it's just sort of sat there. I mean, you can see it is actually animating. There we go. So it does auto animate, which is nice. We've got a little flicker that sort of, or shimmer I should say, that shimmers around and makes this look a bit more real and a bit more natural. But I want to track this into the scene. All right, so we have our little motion tracker down at the bottom. And let's come down here. But this is a point tracker. It's a regular old point tracker. And how much do I like point trackers? Well, usually, you know, sometimes they could be all right, but we've got something a little bit tricky with this one. In the background here, we don't really have a static point, a single static point, because we've got the leaves and the trees are moving quite a lot. We've got this giant wall that's heading over the top here, so it obscures our view for a lot of the time. So what I would like to do is to use the mocha tracker at this point. The one that we've seen before, we know how to use it, it's all very nice. But the lens flare itself doesn't have the mocha tracker built in. So this is where we do a little trick. So if I come back into something like color and tone again, I find another filter that actually does have the PixelChooser with the mocha tracker in. So I can use something like brightness and contrast, so I can sort of, you know, kill two birds with one stone at this point. I can sort of give this shot a little bit more contrast and come into mocha. Let's launch mocha here. And let's come to the back here, and we can do a track. There we go. So let's just show where we're tracking, which is going to be around about here. It's going to track somewhere in the outside, and I'm just going to track translation on this one. So it's just going to track position, just so it's a tiny bit faster to render out. And as that's tracking backwards, you can see things are going to start to happen here. This is one of the other advantages of having the mocha tracker, is that stuff like this, what's it called? Lampshade, that's the word, is going to start to encroach over the edge here. So what I can do is I can just change the shape. And because it's tracking, not just tracking the individual points here, it's tracking that plane. So long as the place where we send it to is coplanar, so that means it's sitting in the same place, that track is going to be absolutely fine and perfect. We've got another little problem coming through in just a couple of seconds, which we've seen before. We've got this wall encroaching here. That's not going to be as fun. So what I'm going to do with the wall is actually a couple of different things. One, I'm just going to change that shape so we get more of the outside world. And I'll rename this track outside. The other thing I'm going to do is make a new layer. that describes this wall. And I can use this shape as a track mat, so I can use it to cut out, use that to cut out the rest of this shape here. So I don't have to track this, I can actually just keyframe this on my own, just set the range there, and we'll keyframe that to around about there. So let's just bring that over here, change the shape there. Let's have a little look. That's going to be all right. Cool. All right, so now let's come back to our outside and we'll just continue our track as if nothing had happened. So now what's going to happen is that as that goes through, we have a look at our track mats and we turn on our shape here. You can see that that top layer is going to be cutting out and making sure that this wall doesn't affect the track outside. You can see it just changed a little bit there, so what I'm going to do is just bring this over a little bit. There we go. Cool. Until it completely goes out, which is fine, good. So now, if I just saved and quit here, what would happen is I would be getting that shape. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export that tracking data, and I can export it either as a BCC center point or corner pin. So let's just do this as a center point, save that out, and I will call this one Ben's Lovely Track. Now I can exit this out, and I need to remember to turn my PixelChooser off on the brightness and contrast because I don't want to use that shape that I've just created to cut that out. Let's come back into our lens flare, come down to our motion tracker, and I can just go load. I can find my tracks, Ben's Lovely Track, hit OK on that, and you can see here that I've got my tracking data loaded into that plugin. So all I have to do now is say I'm going to apply that to the light source. Thank you very much. Do a quick handy little offset. A little bit there. And maybe a little bit there. Cool, I can turn off my show motion path now. And let's play that back. And now you can see that lens flare is now following in. So it's just a small movement we've got, but it really helps. The issue we've got now is, of course, that's not looking good. That is a very, very, very powerful sun to be able to burn through that wall. So what I could do is I can add keyframes and keyframe stuff out, but I don't want to add keyframes. Nope, we're going to let the plugin do the job for us. If we go up to the top of our lens flare 3D, we have this obscuration map layer. So what this is going to say is it's going to let us choose what layer to look at to figure out when to turn on and off the flare, or when to attenuate the flare, I should say. So we're going to set that to video 1. We can set the source radius, so how far around is it going to be looking to be changing that flare, and then the threshold here. So if I come over to the wall, which is one of the bits I want to chop out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to that threshold until my lens flare goes out, which is around about there, around about 20, 23. So now without adding a single keyframe in, we get that auto animating up, and it's also reacting to the leaves in the trees as well. And if that's too jittery for you, then of course all we have to do is change the source radius a little bit there, and that will then sort of ease that a little bit. Cool. And we play that back. Lovely. There we go. So that's an animated lens flare in Premiere without using a single keyframe. So I kind of like that. It's kind of cool. Now I know we're running out of time. Do we have any questions over on the other side?
Do you know we've been answering them all, and you've been explaining very quickly and slowly. So, no, it's
too good.
Totally fine.
Good. We'll move on. We'll move quickly on.
Wonderful.
So we've got a lot of stuff.
We have about 15 minutes left.
Perfect. Perfect. We can do this, everyone. It's all right. Calm down. We can do this. We've got a little shot here. We'll have a look at this one. What I'm going to show you now is another one of my go-to filters. This is one that I'll use maybe not 99% of the jobs, but I'd say a good 90% of my projects. Especially if there hasn't been any sort of diffusion when it's been recorded, is I'm going to use where are we now? It's going to be under film style. It's going to be the fast film glow. Now this is very cool, and it's a deceptively simple filter. So I'm going to bring that on over the top, and guess what it's going to do? Yeah, it's going to glow stuff up a little bit. So you can see that's now just glowing the highlights out, and we can easily choose what the highlights are going to be using things like the threshold. So we can make that a bigger or smaller glow here. And it's actually something a little bit like this that I like to do just to sort of soften out the edges a little bit, just to add a little bit of diffusion over the top. So some like a sort of fairly subtleish glow, maybe not huge in the hundreds of glow intensity, but taking it down, maybe something even as low as like 15 or 16, depending on the footage, obviously, just to add just a little bit of diffusion to the highlights. That sort of ends up looking really nice. But if we don't want to have it looking just sort of subtle and smooth, and we want to go a little bit crazier and a little bit more over the top, of course, we can do that as well. And let's see the sort of stuff we can do. If it's come over to the effects browser, and we can see we can really start to push things in terms of colors. So we've got a big red, we've got big green, we've got bigger green. We got like things like the horizontal cool mist, which is it's actually really nice as well. I like that. Let's play that through. Actually, let's do more than play that through. Let's use that as the basis for the effect that we're going to do. So that's a really sort of cool little streaky kind of effect that we've got going on. And on the effect itself, we can change up the glow intensity so it's more or less. Obviously, we can change the glow radius to sort of push that out a little bit more, like a big glow radius with this sort of stuff. But we can also individually play around with the X and Y radius as well. So here we've got a really long or really big X radius, which is blurring this stuff out horizontally. If we want to blur this out vertically instead, we can just swap this around. We can stick the X to 0, and we can stick the Y to 300 or 200 or whatever we need it to go to. 180, that's fine there. And we've got some nice sharp edges going on. So if we can soften those sharp edges out, just to stick the X radius to 2. And then to limit the effect to only the brightest points in the image, again, this is the chance, the point where I bring up my glow threshold here. And if we look at the view, we can see the output, we can see the glow just individually, or we can see the threshold, so we can actually see where the brightest bits of the image are, or where we're telling the filter where the brightest bits of the image are. Something around about there is just going to hold in the windows and a little bit of reflection coming off the stairs. So now that's a little bit more of a sort of subtle effect. If you can call giant light streaks a subtle effect, I think you can here. Cool, and that works quite nicely. Now another thing that we can do here, and see that reacts really nicely to as he's walking down those stairs. Yeah, another thing we can do here is we don't have to just stick with the glow as it is in the image here. We can do RGB independent glow, so we're not just blurring everything in the same sort of way. If I turn my RGB independent glows on, I get another little drop down, which lets me add a little bit of chromatic aberration to this. So we can, by taking down the red scale, you can see we get a little bit of colour. Let's zoom this in a little bit here. Zoom that over, there we go, bring that over there. Yeah, so we're getting a bit of colour into our glow there. And we can do the same on the blue. We can scale the blue up and just get some kind of cool, there we go, kind of cool little effects going on. And that's just a fast one, that's just a little simple one. But one of the ones that I use all the time, fast film glow, love it. Just a little drop at the end of a project, perfect. You need something that's a little bit more whiz bang, go crazy. Huge, giant glows everywhere, excellent. We're going to skip over witness protection because we're running out of time. I'm going to show you something a little bit more fun, which is going to be the glitch. So we've got a couple of filters here. We've got a couple of clips here. Playing those through. And I want to do a little transition between them. So not only do we have the Boris Continuum Complete filters as video effects, and we've got a whole sort of category for BCC transitions right here. In Premiere, we can use these as actual transitions as well. So we've got things like, let's do a cross zoom. Whoosh. Let's make that a little bit faster. Boom, there we go, cross zoom. Everyone loves a cross zoom. We've got things like a lens flare. Splash, nice. You want a linear wipe? Well, you've got one. There we go. You want a radial wipe? You've got, yeah, we've got tons. There we go. Lovely. Of completely customizable effects. So we're going to the effects controls. We've got all the customizable stuff we have here, plus all of the presets that we've seen already. Now, one of the ones I wanted to show you is the cross glitch, because this is quite a fun little one. So what the cross glitch is going to do, yeah, it's going to give us a sort of broken signal to glitch between the two. And if I come into the effects controls, again, we've got lots of different types of glitching. So we've not just got your one sort of codec falling over glitch. We've got frozen desaturated blocks. There we go. We've got loads of different stuff to play around with, a bit of shake. There we go. And this glitching is actually quite fun to use when we have titles as well. So we can do the same sort of stuff along with the titles. So we can sort of bring this in. And let's actually play the clip that I'm after. There we go. And glitch that in there. So the advantage, or one of the cool things about having this both as a transition and as an effect, is that we can get this sort of weird and wonderful style of let's go to stylize here. Yeah, style of sort of glitching things up, messing everything about. So we've spent a load of time kind of coming in and making everything look nice, let's spend the last 5 minutes just glitching everything up so it looks nice in a different way. There we go. So let's just get the glitch over the top. Come over to our effects browser one more time. And you can start to see some of the different types of glitch that we've got. Let's take this down a little bit more. Again, working in 4K was probably not my finest idea for working at speed. But you can see how, you know, we've seen how fast and the previews have been just to play them out, though. At least there's that. There we go. So we find one we like. So something maybe flickering or unstable signal. Let's just apply that there. Coming in, and then we've just got this unstable little signal going in. Actually, let's make something even bigger. Rapid extreme shift. There we go. Nice. And we can control all of these in a number of different ways, and many different ways that we're not going to be able to see today. So this is the point where you download the. Oh, do not give me a low level exception there. Thank you very much. Excuse me 1 second while I just save and come back out of Premiere.
Oh, it's the law of demos.
It is. It's always the last second, the last thing I wanted to show. It's been so well behaved as normal.
Yeah.
And now I just need to find where After Effects is. There you are. No, don't want After Effects. Want Premiere. Thank you.
It's just because, you know, you were in the middle of a demo, so of course it's got to show off.
Oh, of course. Of course. Yes, I do want to take the thing. Thank you.
Well, we'll get Premiere started again, and you'll be able to show glitch just fine.
Here we are. Here we are. We're back.
Wonderful.
We're back. Right. Yeah. What I wanted to show was just actually how we can start to keyframe this in, so we don't have to have it glitching all over the place all the time, because that could just be really annoying. So we can easily just keyframe this glitch up there. We're glitchy, and then we're not glitchy anymore, and then maybe we're a little bit glitchy again. Let's just bring that down one more time. There we go. We're just a little bit glitchy. Cool. So that's the automatic way of doing it. We can sort of do that all with keyframes. The other way of doing it is with the intensity threshold, and which is this one here, and doing something with the Beat Reactor. So what the Beat Reactor is going to ask us to do is it's going to ask us to load in an audio file. So let's just load in an audio file here somewhere. Let's go Big Daddy stock. There we go. And I believe I have that file in my, there we go. Boom. So all we've got is whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I hope you can hear the audio on that. If you can't hear it, then at least you can see it, because as soon as we turn the Beat Reactor on, let's turn that off there.
We can't hear it because it's in your headphones, but that's okay. We can see the waveform.
You can see the waveform, but that's it. It's perfect. It's all you need. And I'll make the sounds with my mouth, or maybe I won't. Yeah. So what we're doing with as soon as we get the Beat Reactor in here, we can get a little waveform going, which is going to show us the different frequencies that are being used in the particular file. And what we can do with this is we can then come in and we can assign a set of those frequencies to to do a particular parameter. So if we come here, I'm going to set up my sampler to only do the sort of bass areas here. So it's only when we hit the bass bit there that it's going to actually do anything. We can see the intensity over here. And again, with the Beat Reactor, we can then choose what we want to do with it, whether it's going to add it to the value or replace the value from a minimum, well, whatever range we want to stick in here. So the upshot of this is that as I play this back, it's only going to glitch properly when we've got the audio going through. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. You really, I don't like to lord it over people, but you're really missing out with the sound here. Very, very good. It's just a sword going whoosh, 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 whoosh. There we go. But you see the idea. You get the idea of how we can start to use the Beat Reactor going in. I'm glad we don't have some proper music going in, because then people would be extra specially jealous at this point. So if I want to turn the graph off on the Beat Reactor, I just say show graph, no, and that takes it away. So all we have to do there is then play that through. We can then see the glitch working when the audio works. Cool, we've been through a lot. We haven't quite gotten through everything I wanted to, unfortunately, so we're going to have to arrange a time to come back and do some other stuff again. But we've had a look at the Beauty Studio. So how we can start to use Beauty Studio and Remover and the Magic Sharp to just help to smooth out skin, take away any imperfections, and then make the image pop. We've had a little look back in here. We've had a little look at some of the color correction and how we can start to use the PixelChooser, I'd say presets with the PixelChooser as well, to help to increase do some work on the skies or individual elements of the image, and then do an overall correction over the top of that. Who could forget our lovely lens flares that we've done? So we've got a completely self-animating lens flare without a keyframe in sight, done by using the motion tracking from Mocha from a different frame, and using obscuration layers and other little features that are built into the lens flare 3D. And the glows, of course, who could forget the glows coming through, again using the threshold and some of the other little techniques just to isolate little areas out for us here. So that's been it for me. Do we have any other questions? I think we've got to wrap it up, don't we, really?
We do have to wrap it up, and I think...
Sorry, everyone.
No, it's okay. You only went a little over, and that's fairly typical. It happens. Everybody says thank you very much. I don't see a lot of questions. Thank you so much for tuning in to the end. Ben, I'm going to let you plug anything you want to plug before we go, Curious Turtle, etc. So please feel free to take over from here.
Well, I think that's been about it, really. Just, yeah, if you want to see some more of my stuff, want to hear some more from me, then head over to curiousturtle.com. I've got loads of different training courses in a variety of different bits of software, including Mocha, Silhouette, and DaVinci Resolve. So,
perfect. Well, thank you so much. And guys, remember, you can always find us at borisfx.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Vimeo, Twitter, etc. Thanks so much for tuning in, and you have a wonderful day.